Good morning, everybody. It is September 19th, 9:30. This is our regular Ottawa City Commission meeting. Let's start with our roll call, please.
Mayor Skidmore,
Present.
Commissioner Jorgensen,
Present.
Commissioner Wygand,
Present.
Commissioner Kaler,
Present.
Commissioner Crowley.
Present.
We're all here and accounted for, so I want to welcome everybody here in the room with us today, as well as listening on the radio and watching on the Government Access channel. We'll begin with our Pledge of Allegiance, followed by our invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I'll fill in for the prayer today. Bless the Father. Father, here, please. Just in time.
On call.
That's fine.
Get myself together here. Good to see you all this morning.
Okay.
Okay. I'll be the briefest part of your meeting today. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, Almighty and loving God, you gather us together as this council of the City of Ottawa to carry the truth to all people, to manage appropriately. Ask your blessing on the members of this council, that your Spirit enlighten their minds and guide all their actions, that they may be renewed and continue to renew in trustworthiness, united in truth, to bring fulfillment to the work of your hands, with protection to your greater glory and honor through Christ our Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll run
Thank
back.
you, Father.
Thank you,
very
Father
much.
Fisher.
Feel free to stay.
Okay, we have a consent agenda, item 6, the minutes from the August 27th study session and the September 5 regular meeting. Do we have approval for this consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner,
I move that we approve the consent agenda as listed in the agenda.
is there a second?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I move to adjust the agenda by moving items, if I may see this.
Yeah.
Items 15 through 18 before item 11 on the agenda.
Also move.
All right,
Also
you amend that motion?
amend that motion.
And it's been seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We'll continue on then. Any public comments? None today?
No one's registered.
Okay, fine. We'll move on to the declaration. At this time, I'd like to give the commissioners a chance to declare any conflict or communication they've had that might influence their ability to consider today's issues impartially. I think we're okay there. Very well. Move on to item number 10.
Proclamation recognizing Constitution Week on September 17th through 23rd, 2018.
Constitution Week is an official week to commemorate the anniversary of the creation of the world's longest-lived written Constitution. Members of the General Edward Hand Chapter, Daughters of the American Revolution, will accept the proclamation, and it will be read by Commissioner Jorgensen.
It's my pleasure to read this. My grandmother was a member of the Oahe chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution. And the proclamation reads as follows. Whereas September 17th, 2018 marks the 231st anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention, and whereas it is fitting and proper to officially recognize this magnificent document in the anniversary of its creation, and whereas in 1956, at the urging of National Society, Daughters of the American Revolution, Congress set aside September 17th through 23rd annually to be dedicated for the observance of Constitution Week to, number one, emphasize every citizen's responsibility to protect and defend the Constitution. Number two, to inform the people that the Constitution is the basis for America's great heritage and the foundation for our way of life. And number three, encourage the study of historical events which led to the framing of the Constitution in September 1787. And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America, designating September 17th through 23rd as Constitution Week. Now therefore, the governing body of the City of Ottawa, Kansas does hereby proclaim September 17th through 23rd, 2018 to be Constitution Week in Ottawa, Kansas, and asks our citizens to reflect upon and reaffirm the ideals and the framers of the Constitution had in 1787. signed this 19th day of September 2018 by Blake Jorgensen, Mayor Pro Tem.
Very good. And if some of the Daughters of the American Revolution would be willing to stand with me, we'll get a picture. We'll all stand right here.
Go 1, 2, 3. Jeez. Great.
Mayor and Commissioners, on behalf of the General Edward Hand Chapter of the National Society of the Daughters of the American Revolution, I humbly and proudly accept this proclamation regarding Constitution Week. 230 years ago, September 17th, 1787, the framers of our Constitution gathered in a room to sign a document that is still in effect today. It is the oldest document still in active use that outlines the self-government of a nation. These men knew the great responsibility in front of them to craft a document that would ensure the success of the new republic and allow that republic to grow. So from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1787 to Ottawa, Kansas in 2018, our desire for self-governing and taking care of our communities and neighbors continue. Thank you for your time today, and thank you for your service to our community.
Well, thank you, Dale. I just think about with our Supreme Court justices, justice being considered in Washington, and how important, regardless of your party affiliation, that the strict adherence to this document is critically important for that position, as well as any elected official among us, even us up here ourselves, that we take an oath of office for that cause. So I just want to thank you for bringing it to our attention and how important it is, and appreciate your continued support for that.
Thank you. You'll find at your name tags that we left a little card just for Constitution Week.
Very good.
Thank you for
Thank you, Dale. Thanks. Thanks, ladies, for being here. We will skip over to, start with the next item, 15, I guess it looks like.
Request for approval of ordinance authorizing the issuance and delivery of $1,650,000 principal amount of general obligation bonds, Series 2018A for stormwater improvements.
This ordinance also provides for the levy and collection of an annual tax for the purpose of paying the principal and interest on these bonds as they come due. Mr. Arterberry.
Good morning. David Arterberry with George K. Baum & Company. I think the next 4 items on your agenda, and I do appreciate you moving these around a little bit. The purchaser, the best bidder on the bonds, has got a deadline of 10 o'clock this morning that we have to get back to them by. So we're doing good on time, but I was a little worried. So thanks for moving your agenda. The next 4 items are all related to the 2 bond issues that the city is in the process of issuing. The first issue that was mentioned just a minute ago is the $1,650,000 of general obligation bonds that are being used to fund the new stormwater projects in town. The other issue is the $1,050,000 of bonds that is being used along with sales tax money to retire temporary notes that the city issued to fund the acquisition of land at Proximity Park. So yesterday we actually conducted the sale for these bonds. Prior to the sale, we advertised for the offering on Bloomberg and in the Bond Buyer, which is a municipal bond magazine. We also distributed last week the official statement, the offering document for the issues, and ended up yesterday taking bids at 11 o'clock. And I was really, really pleased with the results. We ended up getting a total of 6 bids on the Series 2018A bonds and a total of 5 bids on the 2018B bonds. And we got bids from about, I think in total, about 9 different companies. The best bid for each series actually happened to be Commerce Bank. We could have had different bidders providing the best bids on either series, but it just so happened that Commerce Bank really sharpened their pencil and ended up with the best bid on both. For the Series 2018A bonds, Commerce Bank's true interest cost was 3.410917%. And on the taxable 2018B bonds, the interest rate they offered was 3.437721%. We reviewed the bids. They were mathematically correct. They met all of the other bidding parameters, including they provided a 2% good faith deposit yesterday. So everything turned out real well, and we see no reason that you wouldn't want to proceed with accepting these bids. The next steps then that you would take would be the adoption of the ordinance and the resolution for each of the series. And those are your next 4 agenda items. And if you have particular questions about those documents, I'd probably refer you to Adrian with QTech Rob. But about the sale or anything, please, ask me any question you might have.
Yeah, David, I guess I thought there'd be a wider spread for the non-taxable, but I guess because our tax rates have been adjusted, it's not as much a spread anymore?
Well, actually, the main reason the interest rates are so close is because the 2018A bonds, the tax-exempt bonds, those are being repaid over 20 years. So that's a 20-year borrowing. The 2018B bonds, those are only go out to 2026. So that's what, an 8-year borrowing.
Okay.
So that's really the reason
That's
the interest
what-
rate is so close. There'd be a bigger spread if they were both the same
gotcha.
repayment period.
It's only 3 basis points. That's pretty tight.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. Wow, okay. Any other questions anybody have?
And this is right in the market for whether the bonds are selling, or these were favorable rate?
Yeah, they're a real good rate. The tax exempt bonds, I think the difference between the high interest rate that was bid and the low interest rate was less than 0.2 of a percentage point, which tells me all those 6 bidders had a really good idea of what the market was. The taxable bonds, the spread was a little bit more, but a taxable bond issue, typically there's not as many taxable municipal bonds as there are tax exempt. So it would be understandable that maybe the spread between the bids was a little bit higher, but still very good rates, and right about maybe a little bit better than we were originally expecting.
Very good. So it's good?
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, Commissioner.
I move to approve the ordinance authorizing the issuance and delivery of 1.65 million principal amount of GO bonds Series 2018A for stormwater improvements.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
We got 2 seconds, take your pick. Amy, any other discussion on this? If not, let's take a roll call vote, please.
How do you vote, Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Commissioner Wygand?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaler?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Mayor Skidmore?
And I vote yes, too. The motion carries. Thanks. Go on to item number 16. I guess we need to do these one by one, Commissioner, or Counselor.
Mr. Mayor, I recommend you do each of them individually, but you've been briefed on all of them in total, so if you just want to move forward with the motions at this point, you can do that.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, go ahead.
Commissioner Kaylee?
I'll go next.
All right.
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner.
I move that we approve the resolution for the 2018 A Series bonds in the amount of $1.65 million.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second. Any other discussion? Let's go a roll call vote, please.
How do you vote, Commissioner Kaler?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Commissioner Wygand?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Mayor Skidmore?
I vote yes, too. Motion carries. Item 17. Do you have a motion? Oh, is this a new one, I guess? We need to look at this one separately.
I think he's great.
I think
We're
we
good there?
already talked
Everybody's
about
been
it.
briefed? Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner.
I move to approve the request for approval of ordinance authorizing the issuance and delivery of 1.05 million principal amount in GO bonds, Series 2018B for land acquisition, water and stormwater improvements at Proximity Park.
And there's a second.
I'll second.
There's a second. Any other discussion? Let's go a roll call vote, please.
How do you vote, Commissioner Wygand?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaler?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Mayor Skidmore?
I vote yes, too. The motion carries. Going to item number 18. We have a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner.
I will move that we approve the resolution prescribing the form and details and authorizing delivery of $1,050,000 principal amount in GO Bonds Series 2018B.
Very good. Any other discussion? Or is there a second on that? I'm sorry.
I'll second.
Crowley, second. Any other discussion? Let's vote, please.
How do you vote, Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Commissioner Weigand?
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Mayor Skidmore?
I vote yes, too. Motion carries. So you got 12 minutes to make that call, I guess, huh? I hope you didn't get a busy line. Just keep trying. Okay. Oh, okay, all right. Better way to do it. We'll back up then and go back to item number, what are we looking at, 11?
11. Acceptance of the fiscal 2017 financial audit.
The 2017 financial audit prepared by Mize, Hauser and Company, PA. And
Good morning,
good morning.
everybody.
Morning.
So my name is Audrey Oderman, and I'm here with Mize and Company, and I'm going to go over the financial statements briefly, and you can just stop me whenever you want, ask questions along the way. I'm going to start with page 1 and 2, which is our Auditors Report. This report goes through and it discusses management's responsibility in regards to the financial statements, our responsibility as auditors of the city's financial statements. I want to talk just a little bit about that header on the top of page 2 where it says adverse opinion. Everybody has a little bit of, tenses up a little bit when they say adverse opinion. It doesn't sound very good. But what that's just saying is you don't have GAAP financial statements. So the basis of accounting that the city uses, as you know, is this Kansas regulatory basis. So we can't give an opinion on GAAP financial statements because you don't have them. So that's really what that first paragraph is saying. If we go to the second paragraph on page 2, that's the actual opinion on the financial statements on the basis of accounting that the city uses. So that's one big run-on sentence. Accountants really aren't very good at grammar. So, but that's, that run-on sentence basically says that the financial statements of the city have received an unmodified opinion, which is the highest opinion that the financial statements can receive under the regulatory basis of accounting. The rest of that letter goes on to discuss different components of the financial statements and what we call supplementary information. So in front of the note disclosures and the note disclosures would be considered the basic financial statements. Everything after the note disclosures are supplementary information. So that's what the remainder of that letter is talking about. I'm going to move on really quickly to page 3, which is probably my favorite part of the financial statements because it's a really easy place. You just get a quick snapshot of the city and be able to look at the receipts, expenditures, and cash balances by fund for the city. So if there's a particular fund you want to look at, or if you want to look at the accounts payable or the cash in total, this is the page you go to really quickly. The notes in the financial statements include a lot of useful information, and I'm sure you'll all enjoy reading them word for word. There's a lot of different things in there that talks about the basis of accounting that's used, all the debt instruments that the city has issued, and the payment over those debt instruments. I just want to point out one note really quickly, and that's on page 7, and it's labeled Retirement Plan. This talks about the city's involvement in CAPERS. And so as you read through there, you can see the portion of the CAPERS unfunded liability that's been attributed to the city. And why I want to point this out this year is that there's going to be some modifications to that note next year. There's been some new accounting standards that have been issued that now say, okay, well, CAPERS doesn't just offer a pension plan. They have some insurance that goes along with it. And so there's going to be some additional information in that note. So I want you to pay attention and see if you can find it next year. So there'll be some changes to that note disclosure and some additional information that we'll have to add. In addition to this information, we also are obligated to tell you if we had noticed any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in regards to internal controls, and we did not, or if we noted any non-compliance with laws or regulations as they relate to the financial statements, and we did not as well. So, do you have any questions for me?
Very lengthy report here, but any other questions anybody have?
Mr. Mayor, I just
Commissioner.
might want to comment that individuals who may be watching this again or who may be listening to this, they certainly have freedom to come into City Hall and to look at this audit at any time because this is a public document and certainly something that citizens should
have the opportunity to look at if they wish.
I guess glad you brought that up, Sarah. I think it's very important that we are open to anyone to come on to view that, so certainly we are. It's their money. They have the right to come look at where it's being spent and where it's going and where it is now, so. Any other questions anybody have?
Saying that, Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner,
I move that we accept the 2017 financial audit.
is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Any other discussion? Let's take a roll call vote, please.
How do you vote, Commissioner Wygant?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaler?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Mayor Skidmore?
And I vote yes too. The motion carries. So, Audrey, thank you very much for being here. Thank you. Mr. Arterberry, we all good there, I guess? It's almost 10?
Yeah.
We're good?
I shut the email off.
And didn't reject or anything? And all right, good. I'm just watching for that big smile. Okay. Item number 12.
Request for approval of bid award for Ash Street Stormwater Improvement Project.
Bartlett West reviewed the project bids and recommends the contract be awarded to Kilo Construction with 34% additional contingencies to account for relocation of water service lines, construction observation, and material testing. The contingencies bring the base bid to $950,803.78 and the alternate bid to $932,056.14. Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. If you remember correctly, these are projects that we identified that would help reduce some flooding in a few areas. This project, especially on Ash Street, there's no inlets from 3rd Street south to 7th Street. So this will greatly enhance the ability to capture water and reduce flooding on Ash Street. The project was bid by, the low bid by Kilos. We had 2 bids, a base bid and an alternate bid. The base bid required a cost for reinforced concrete pipe, and the alternate bid was for HDPE or plastic pipe, and staff would like to recommend to accept the alternate bid at $932,056.14. Subject to any questions?
Yeah, I watched part of this on Facebook, and I recognize the difference in building materials can make a difference there, so I appreciate your lengthy, detailed discussion on that. I don't need to hear it again, but thank you for at least looking at an alternative. We appreciate you taking care of a taxpayer money by doing that, so thank you for that.
Michael, just briefly, would you be able to kind of go over how you'll be working with the homeowners in the area as far as traffic and availability or access to their homes?
Yes, Commissioner. Once these bids are accepted and we move forward with signing the contracts, we'll get the engineers involved, Bartlett and West, as well as the contractors involved, and hold a public meeting with all the residents along Ash Street that will be affected, and completely inform them of what the project will be, how long we expect it to take, what detours, what road closures they can expect, and establish a line of communication for the homeowners to contact if they have any issues.
Okay. I can only assume that they'll be happy to get the river taken out of their off the street and put under in stormwater.
I would hope so.
Yes. All right. Thank you.
In Commissioner Jorgensen's point, we might also point out that it's not just the neighbors that may be inconvenienced a wee bit. I mean, we certainly know that there may be some traffic issues that we have during this time, and we ask citizens to be
That's
kind.
correct. That seems to be a good main route to use to get to the high school and the middle school. So we'll also be including the USD 290 bus people.
And it's
So
a
that
main
they-
route for our fire department and our
Yes.
police department, so.
Everyone. Yes.
Right. I remember as a kid, that street, Ash Street, my goodness, it was a pretty good slope. I was going to Forest Park, and you're going pretty fast down Ash Street. By that 3rd Street, you hope your brakes would work at 2nd Street. I remember that, but it's a pretty good slope there. So without any inlets, I can see why it'd be an issue with regard to flooding near the police station then. Is that,
Yes.
this will eliminate that? Good. Any other questions?
Yeah, when is it anticipated the project will begin?
Well, we've got a couple of weeks to get the contracts ready. and get the contract signed, and then it's a matter of putting a schedule together with the contractor.
So we're still talking,
We're hoping
Before when?
we're hoping to get started yet this year.
okay.
Any other questions? I'll
And
entertain a
and the
motion.
source, I'm sorry, the source of repayment for this is the
Stormwater utility fund, yes.
Okay, good. The fees that are charged on the utility, on the stormwater utility.
Good. Any other-
Mr.
Commissioner?
Mayor,
Commissioner.
I move that we approve the bid award for Ash Street Stormwater Improvement Project, the alternate bid for the Ash Street Stormwater Improvement Project.
Very good. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
There's a second. Any other discussion? If not, let's take a roll call vote, please.
How do you vote, Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Commissioner Weigand?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaler?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
I vote yes.
Mayor Skidmore?
I vote yes, too. Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Let's move on to item number 13.
Request for approval of bid award for 15th Street Stormwater Improvement Project.
Bartlett & West, Inc. reviewed the project bids and recommends the contract be awarded to Kellogg Construction with 33% additional contingencies to account for relocation of water service lines, construction observation, and material testing. The contingencies bring the base bid total to $498,904.83, and the alternate bid at $485,174.09. Gentlemen.
Again, this is the second project we identified. If you have ever traveled down 15th Street to the east from Maine, you'll notice that there's a low spot around Poplar. Yeah, close to Poplar. We have a flooding issue because it's a low point with no curb inlets for the water to escape from. So this was the second project that we identified as being important. This bid is not as straightforward as the other bid. There were two other lower bidders that did not submit complete bids, as they did not include a cost for the relocation of the water lines or the water service lines. So those two bids were incomplete. Therefore, Kilos was the next lowest bid. They did submit a complete bid, and we're recommending that we accept the alternate bid and the base bid and the alternate bid are the same as the previous project, the base bid being reinforced concrete pipe and the alternate being HDPE or plastic pipe. So we're recommending the alternate bid at $485,174.09 be awarded to Kilo.
And this particular bid reflects less linear feet, I guess, than what we're dealing with on Ash Street. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. A lot less linear feet and not as much curb work.
Okay.
Mr. Hafley, when you were talking about the relocation of water service lines, that's for the permanent relocation. It's not a temporary relocation. or
That
ju-
would be a permanent
okay.
relocation.
Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor, I have a question, and I probably should have or could have asked this in the study session, but on the 33% additional contingencies, are those true contingencies? Those can fluctuate, and up is the contractor's problem, down is the contractor's profit, or
It's
what?
kind
How
of
do you figure
the,
that?
what we're looking at as the max from the standpoint of every water service line, you don't know what the elevation of it is, and we're putting in a bigger pipe, and some of them might be under the existing storm sewer, so that water service line wouldn't need to be relocated. It's, we asked for a price per linear foot, and then we went through and calculated every linear foot of water service line that is on the projects, and it's put in the contingency if every single one of them had to be lowered or moved. The construction observation and material testing is also a max. It's based on if the contractor used every single working day and then some. What we're looking at, since one contractor is being awarded for both projects, that it's one observer can probably handle both projects at the same time, and it'll be a cost savings to the city. So those contingencies are the max. We should be coming in underneath those with the cost of the CO work. Just like with Proximity Park, it's an hourly type contract. It's based on the working days. with that, and then the water service lines we looked at the worst case scenario, if every water service line, and I think there's a water main on each, had to be relocated. Is that?
Yes, that answers the question, but I guess the other question would be that the beneficiary of any reduced additional contingencies
Is
would be
the
to
city.
the contractor.
Well,
And
the contractor will only be paid per linear foot of water service line.
Okay.
That they relocate. The contract for construction observation will be with the city in Bartlett and West. It will not be through the contractor. So any savings on those will be, the city will have the savings.
Okay. That's
Good question.
question was, thank you.
You bet. Any other questions? If not, entertain a motion on this item.
I move we approve the request for approval of that bid.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second. Any other discussion? Let's have a roll call vote, please.
How do you vote, Commissioner Kaler?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Commissioner Wygand?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Mayor Skidmore?
I vote yes, too. The motion carries. So thank you, gentlemen. You know, I suppose if we had a 30-inch rain like North Carolina, this would certainly bring to attention the need for this, although I don't know if this could handle 30 inches of water or not, but a lot better than it could today.
It would help the beginning of it.
Okay, the beginning, all right.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah, thank you all. Thank you all very much for being here. Move on to item number 14.
Request for approval of resolution authorizing the serving of complimentary alcoholic liquor and cereal malt beverages during an Ottawa Area Chamber of Commerce event.
This resolution authorizes the serving of complimentary alcoholic liquor and/or cereal malt beverage on unlicensed premises of business by the business owner or agent from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. during the Ladies' Night Out event on October 5th. And Mr. John Cohen.
Honorable Commission, thank you for the opportunity to stand before you again and request this annual request that we make. It's always a great night in Ottawa, Ladies' Night Out. We anticipate over 600 participants with 40 participating businesses. Again, we're partnering with Memorial Auditorium. The event will start there and then we'll end there. We're actually having a Beatles help me out. Tribute band. Thank you, sir. You had to help me at the study session too. Beatles tribute band that Tiffany has arranged for that will play afterwards, and so we just need this annual blessing of this resolution to allow some of our participating businesses to serve complimentary alcoholic drinks. All alcoholic laws apply, of course. No alcohol on the sidewalks. Age requirements apply, and all of that.
Very good. Anybody have any questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner.
I'd like to make a motion to approve item 14, the request for approval of resolution authorizing the serving of complimentary alcoholic liquor and cereal malt beverages during the Ottawa Chamber of Commerce event.
Okay, is there a second? There's a second here. Any other discussion? Let's have a roll call vote, please.
How do you vote, Commissioner Wygand?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaler?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Mayor Skidmore?
I'll vote yes, too. The motion carries. Thank you, John.
I want to thank you for your continued support of the Ottawa Area Chamber of Commerce and its events and activities. We really appreciate the partnership we have.
Well, that's great. Great event. Thank you, John. How many years has this been going on, John? I forgot to ask you. This been...
I think we're approaching the 10th annual. It's 9 or 10 in there. So, and it's continued to grow every year. Last year we anticipated 500 and we had over 600 participants. So this year we're anticipating over 600. I mean, it's a little bit weather related, but we have pretty good luck at having good weather. So it's a
If I
fun night.
recall when it started, we had about 60
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
night.
That's same with the Flea Junk and Trunk, that our spring event, when we started out, we couldn't get 6 vendors hardly for the first few years, and now we have over 100 vendors. So it takes time to grow an event, and so that's why we're anxious to get Legacy Square up and going and have the opportunity to grow some events at that location too.
I think our car show only had 5 cars the first, well, no, I don't know, but anyway, things
Yeah,
grow.
and yours
That's
and
good.
mine were brand new.
Let's stop that, John. Okay. Thank you, John. Move on to item number 19.
Request for approval of ordinance establishing a land bank and approving the addition of Article 9 to Chapter 5 of Municipal Code.
The land bank is intended to assist the elimination of barriers to returning properties to productive use and to help facilitate the strategic conveyance of property. And Adrian's going to talk to us today.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. Adrian Serene with QTAC Rock, here to discuss the ordinance which would establish the land bank and create a new section of the code for the city of Ottawa. The purpose of the land bank and really the purpose of this ordinance is to allow the city to create a board which would authorize the acquisition of properties that have not developed inside the city of Ottawa. The reason those properties haven't developed and thus haven't sold, in this case, has to do with unpaid property taxes and also delinquent special assessments. So the purpose here of this bank would be to allow the city to acquire these properties that haven't sold at market rates, to wipe out the delinquent property taxes on those properties, and also to have the flexibility to decide what to do with respect to the unpaid special assessments that are mounting up on these properties. So since there are those current unpaid property taxes and current delinquent specials, it's difficult to sell them at market rates. The city could acquire these and wipe out the property taxes, do what they wished with the special assessments, make them more competitive and try to return them to the market. So that's what this ordinance would accomplish, and stand for any questions on it.
Okay. Anybody have any questions on this? I think you did a good job during the study session in describing what this was and what it exactly it is. I've been to several different city meetings around the state and nationally, and there's several other municipalities have taken this on, as well as, I believe, Junction City, Tom
Yes,
did?
we did, yeah.
And I spoke with the city administrator in Lyons, Kansas, and they've done the same thing, and they've had some great success with this program. So it's really, 2008 is a year many bankers wish to forget if we could, and that was a tough year for a lot of people, and the developments began about that time, which when it was, housing was on an uptick, but this is kind of the lasting impressions of a situation like that. So at least this is a good thing that can happen out of a bad situation.
Mr. Mayor, I feel like this is a first step, or not the first step, but a step in the right direction to solving the issues that we have with those properties that with all the mounting special assessments up there at the codes, and therefore I move to approve the request, the ordinance establishing the land bank and improving Article 9 to Chapter 5 of the Municipal Code.
Very good. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second. Any other discussion on this?
No, I would concur with what Commissioner Jorgensen said, that I think this is a great first start, and actually citizens should look at this as a way for us to encourage growth and to encourage housing, and hopefully we see that with the establishment of the land bank.
Very good. Any other discussion on this?
It does, we're giving up some things to get some things. We're giving up nothing because we're not getting anything from those now, and we're going to be able to activate those lots into into a sales position. So the negative aspect is, yeah, we're not going to collect those taxes, but the positive is that we're going to have some construction going on and eventually collect taxes. So I think that's a good thing.
Absolutely. Any other discussion on that? If not, we'll take a roll call vote, please.
How do you vote, Commissioner Kaler?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Commissioner Wigand?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Mayor Skidmore?
I vote yes, too. The motion carries. Thank you, Adrian. Good job.
Commissioners.
We'll move on to item number 20.
Request for approval of resolution defining depository institutions for idle funds.
This resolution names acceptable depository institutions for funds held by the city and the city staff authorized to manage the funds for the city. And Betty will be speaking to us today.
Good morning, Commissioners and Mayor. This resolution is a request. It involves two pieces. The first piece, however, we're not making any changes to. It's the depository institutions in which we hold our funds at. But the other piece, we did have a recent retirement in the Finance Department, which leaves us a little shorthanded when it comes to people signing for our checks, for our deposits, whatever we need to do. And this request would be adding an additional signer to our to the authority given by the governing body.
Okay. Do I have any questions on that?
Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner.
I move that we approve the resolution defining the depository institutions for idle funds.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
There's a second. Any other discussion? It's a roll call vote, please.
How do you vote, Commissioner Wigand?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaler?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowley,
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen,
Yes.
Mayor Skidmore.
I'll vote yes, too. Motion carries. Thanks, Betty. Item number 21.
Request for approval of zoning regulations, Article 2, Rules, Interpretations, and Definitions, Article 4, Intent of Districts, and Article 14, Commercial Zone District, C1 through C4.
This would allow some additional uses in the C4 downtown district, particularly artisanal. Am I pronouncing that correctly, Wendy?
Yes.
I'll just skip over it. Productions such as creative arts with food and other blank food operations and specialty products, whether or not they have retail operations.
Good
Now-
morning, Commissioners and Mayor, and yes, you did pronounce that appropriately. Recently, a new entrepreneur, somebody who's new to developing a business, approached city staff and asked about whether their proposal would fit in our downtown district, which is where they would like to locate. And as we reviewed what they're actually doing, it's a combination of things, as you can imagine with new businesses. Sometimes it's not just one piece of the business, this is several pieces. But the downtown has a lot of variety of uses. When we changed the zoning back in 2004 and 5, we actually delineated some things differently, and their actual proposal would not fit. But as we've reviewed over the last several years, particularly when we added microbrewery and also regulations in our zoning ordinance for micro distillery, some of that research led us to believe that the downtown area would be suitable for a variety of uses that sometimes hadn't been considered in the past. And in particular, they were looking at an artisanal, we use that word, but a food kind of assembly or packaging business. And this is a small kind of business. And if you were to think about an incubator that often communities would establish, they were often done in their downtown areas. And this would have been the kind of business that would have sought an incubator space and would have been allowed. However, our current regulations don't have any kind of allowance for some of those food things. As Sarah Ansachuk did a bunch of research on this, what we came up with was that there are several things that you would consider sort of craft, and I don't mean sewing, craft in the creation of goods, whether for wholesale or even for retail, that might fit well downtown. And so the ordinance the amendments that we proposed were taking advantage of the fact that there are uses in our downtown that would kind of lend themselves to descriptions that might fit in kind of the light industrial area, such as crematoriums, dry cleaners, laundry, printing, screen printing when you have large facilities, etc., as well as wholesale and storage and warehousing. That something like an artisanal food production, something that would allow for those maybe even creative works with wood, that this might be something that we would want to allow in our downtown. And so, as you can imagine, we also did a little bit of looking into what other communities did. We also looked at what were the square footages of the buildings downtown, because the majority of our buildings are fairly small, but we have a few that would be between 5,000, maybe 8,000 square feet that don't necessarily lend themselves to an office, a service, or a retail. And so they might be appropriate for some on-site production or assembly or wholesaling. And so before you is a set of changes to several articles in the zoning ordinance that would allow for this. And we held a public hearing. The only person who spoke was the entrepreneur, who was, of course, encouraging something like this. And this entrepreneur happens to be from within Franklin County, and is really excited about the opportunity to develop a new business line and produce it and sell those goods all over the country as made in Ottawa, Kansas. And so the Planning Commission was very excited about the information that this gentleman shared, and so they recommend to you, as the staff, that we make these amendments to the zoning ordinance.
Okay. when you mentioned about artisanal food, what kind of, what is that? What would that?
So for example, and I'm sure you've seen this, people will do specialty chocolates. They will do specialty cookies, you know, where they can screen on the business logo, and then they
Okay.
package them. And they may do that locally, but they may also do it for other providers. For example, even Maggie's, if she has retail, but if she were doing large popcorn production and assembly in the back, the difference with hers and the proposal that we were looking at is she does have a retail footprint. But if it were something like that,
Okay.
there are other packaging and since there's a lot of online sales today, that's not as uncommon. I failed to mention that one of the reasons we also thought some additional flexibility was important now was because there are the 1,900 retail kinds of goods that you would buy downtown, which were your basic goods, often aren't found downtown anymore. So coming up with creative ways that we can keep our buildings in use, acknowledging that trends in purchasing in particular are being altered all over the country, that this was kind of a way to both support potential new development, new businesses, but also just to keep all buildings in use as much as possible.
Very good. Any other questions anybody have? If not, entertain a motion on item number 21.
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner.
I move that we approve the zoning regulations and the modifications to the zoning regulations as listed by Mrs. Lee.
Any, a second on that?
I'll second it.
A second. Any other discussion on that? If not, let's take a roll call vote, please.
How do you vote, Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Commissioner Wygand?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaler?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Mayor Skidmore?
And I'll vote yes too, the motion carries. Thanks, Wendy. And I guess you're up next for item number 22.
Request for approval of ordinance amending Article 4, Post-Construction Management of Chapter 14, Stormwater Management of Municipal Code.
City staff will review proposed changes to Article 4.
Good morning again. Both Michael and I are going to address really what are the next 4 items, if you're comfortable
Sure.
with that. City staff has been working with some contractors since 2016 to develop these new regulations that we have before you. And we've spent a great deal of time trying to be sure that we crafted what really was suitable for Ottawa, but also something that was best practices in the world of construction and development today. Scott Schulte with Vireo and William Buck with PEC, along with Michael and I and Sarah and Adam, spent just countless hours in meetings reviewing drafts. One of the first things that happened when they were actually working on things to do with our clean water standards, when it was brought to our attention that a number of our standards, which have been adopted at different times, actually had conflicts within them. Meaning that if you were just looking at the municipal code, you might not catch that what was said there was in conflict with something in the zoning ordinance or in the subdivision regulations. And so we were quick to ask Scott then to develop a list of those things where we had conflicts and help us resolve all of them. And that's why there's so many documents really here today. The goals that we had at the beginning, as I said, were the best practices in stormwater management to make sure that we're complying with all clean water standards and again have our good best practices there, that we have clear and consistent language in all of our regulations, and that we had working incentives. So there are some incentives that have been built into our regulations because there are things that happen when you're working in low areas, which is oftentimes where the water's storing or en route, that other people's runoff could be affecting your land. And we wanted to create some incentives for that land still having the opportunity to develop, but develop with these best practices in mind. We had meetings with, from a process standpoint, besides the staff and the consulting engineers on this, we had meetings with contractors, with developers, with others that we knew that had done work here to take a look at these standards. In addition, the city engineer, who was not a part of the development of the standards, also took a look at it so that we would know if he was seeing things different than how we've been doing it, that we could make sure that we hadn't had any gaps again. The Planning Commission spent several months as well. They heard a lot of the same presentations that you all did from Scott Schulte as well as William Buck. They have been recently hearing also from some neighbors adjacent to stormwater areas. And so that also weighed on them as they were considering these regulations. And one of the things in particular was we have a development that you'll be seeing coming to you in the next month. That was near some area that floods on a regular basis. And as it happened, some of the neighbors who came to talk about that development, while we tend to be excited about additional land being developed on, they were very fearful of it. And that is because they live next to areas where water stores. And what they're very conscious of is that over time, flood areas can expand. We seem to think that a flood map is very static and that nothing will change, that that's the greatest extent of the flooding. What they're very conscious of is that over the last 15 or 20 years or their tenure in their home is that that's not true. That sometimes it's about the additional storm, but sometimes it's just because there's been development around the community that has resulted in that water being deeper and higher and coming closer to their homes. So they were very excited to hear that these standards were in draft, and that weighed with the Planning Commission too. And so they recommended the three actions you have are from their perspective, the zoning ordinance, subdivision regulation, and the comp plan were recommendations from them as well. We thought Michael might cover the municipal code, I'll do the comprehensive code plan. We can do each of those individually as you look at each item, or we can just keep going, whichever you prefer.
No preference, anybody? Okay, we got fine, just keep going. Let's go, let's not stop.
Okay, so the significant changes to Chapter 14, Article 4 of the Municipal Code are a requirement of treatment of runoff from stormwater from the entire development area, and the city will designate a water quality storm at 1.2 inches of rainfall, and proposes a new design manual, the Mid-America Regional Council and the American Public Works Association Manual of Best Management Practices for Stormwater Quality.
Michael, go back to that first sentence.
To the first sentence, the requirement of treatment for runoff.
Yeah, what's that mean?
Native vegetation.
So some kind of filtering?
Some kind of filtering system. It can be native vegetation, it can be a man-made type of filter system built into the storm system. But
So if you're going to develop a housing development, right?
Yes.
And streets and everything like that, then you
Yes.
have to have some way of collecting that water before it escapes to the public drainage ditches.
Actually, every time you do that, and I can cover that a little in the subdivision regulations, every time you capture water, you're doing it into the infrastructure system or into a private detention. Before it outflows, okay, oftentimes there can be something there, or as we just looked at a development that in the midst of these regulations, we've let people know, and we've been testing them out just a bit. So we have a site plan on the north side, and as the water is directed to a certain area before it flows off the site, they have a little bit of what we would call a native vegetation filtering catch basin. And so it lets the water go through deeper, but it has some things in it that will help through natural means, if I recall on that one.
Yes.
Clean the water. So it's not necessarily like a filter for your, let's say your furnace, but it behaves the same way with vegetation.
Okay, so taller grass or some kind of.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and that is some of the changes
Natural
that are here.
growth or something.
We are going to allow for and support that some areas, in the past, if you let your grass grow or any kind of vegetation that wasn't like a tree or a bush grow beyond 12 inches, you were subject to a change, an order from the city to cut that.
So we're going to exempt that.
In some cases, these will actually be designed, and this accounts for, the municipal code in particular, changes account for allowing that and supporting it.
Yeah.
And so that will have some changes on how people see things.
Yeah. Good.
So those of us who don't mow our lawns would get an award for conservation.
No, only if you have it approved. It does talk about.
Is that a motion? I think that sounds pretty good.
And approved a stormwater system on your site. But in some cases, as an example, we've talked about testing some of this in some of the city's parks where they already have drainage ways through them. And so planting particular kinds of vegetation, for example, I think we talked with you when we talked about the development of Lakeside, that we might do some demonstration areas there.
Mhm.
And it might be grasses, but it's not like what your turf grass
Yeah.
is.
Farmers have been encouraged for several years to have buffers before the water flows into the streams off their farmland, so this would be a natural development.
Yes.
That's what I was thinking
And
too.
it not only filters it, but it slows down the flow
Yes.
into the
Yeah.
infrastructure.
That's right. Good point. Any other questions? If not, entertain a motion or get some.
Do you want us to keep going? You're just going to.
Oh, yeah, keep going. That's right. I'm sorry, keep going.
That's
We're going,
fine.
we're going to item, where we at?
The comprehensive plan changes. Part of the big change there is developing what we call a 3-zone buffer system. And this is that there's a stream side area, so right immediately adjacent to the water, and middle zone, and then the outer. And each of them serves a slightly different purpose. And we talk about how to cross those areas, the distances, etc. But some of them can be used to be that treatment, which is really the outer zone. Okay, so we might disturb the outer zone closest to the development without affecting the stream side, because that can have a much more detrimental effect. It also talks about how we're going to do the review of these, which things are required at what stage, and it also has some flexibility. But this has to do with, in the comp plan, we have a lot of the floodplain regulations as well. And so that comp plan is, again, that vision that we're moving towards. So you want to do those?
I think here.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the changes to the subdivision Article 4 and zoning regulation Article 20 are making the floodplain management consistent, preventing new floodplain development, and avoid future liabilities and dangers to life, property, and infrastructure. We define sensitive lands to include stream corridors and floodplains. Okay. And then changes to subdivision Article 5 and 13 allow double counting of floodplains, sensitive lands, and open space dedication where possible, providing real density bonuses for set-asides, providing future community trails, streamline residential, conservation, development provisions, and allow anywhere that it's practical and desired. And then the last changes refer to Articles 6, 7, and 14 of the subdivision regulations and zoning regulation Articles 20 and 28. Requiring a preliminary stormwater study be provided with all plat applications and require water quality BMPs and stream setbacks are incorporated as appropriate at the platting stage, and requiring that a final stormwater management study and plan, sensitive areas designation plan, and water quality BMPs and stream setbacks are incorporated into all site plans. Define negative vegetation for incorporation into sensitive areas and designation, landscape plans, and stormwater BMPs, and address any consistent, or address the terminology and requirements.
And Mr. Mayor, if I could at least thank then all the people that have helped us do this, I would really like to thank our consultants and city staff, as well as those designers that helped us review. And then lastly, I'd tell you that this is obviously a significant amount of time that we've worked forward. It's entirely possible that as we try to implement some of these things, we will or could discover that there's some errors yet when you're making a big change like this after this much time. If so, we will work with the developers and contractors to resolve that and bring back amendments to you as needed. Because while they are adopted as ordinance, if we think that there's something that is really not as we intended, we're pretty sensitive to that. And we've already started working with some, Casey in particular does design work for us, but he also does a lot of site planning for others, so that we could see some different applications. And so, for example, Legacy Square even, we're looking at how can we test and try it on ourselves and understand the maintenance of it and understand what it looks like and how it functions best, so that we too, as we do developments as a community, as an organization, are sharing in that learning with the developers.
Okay, good. So some changes here. Either of you, are there other municipalities of similar size that are doing the same thing?
Actually, a lot of them have some of this already.
They're already in place.
Particularly some of the clean water standards, they've had it for a while. And that's part of what we were able then to do, was to learn from some of what they had already put into place.
Good. Maybe any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think one of our greatest assets that we have in this area is the Mendocino River and the water source that we have for our community, but it's also because of the amount of rainfall and the tributaries that flow into the river, it creates us some problems as well. People out in Stockton don't have to worry so much about the water floodplains out there, or there's even counties out there that I understand there's only one bridge in the whole county. But here where we are blessed with a little bit more rain, it's a bigger issue, and I think it's one of these issues that we have to be able to get ahead of or stay ahead of.
And the only bridge there is a card game, right? So,
That's right.
yeah,
That's right.
So I think you're right. No other questions? Anybody? We take these one by one. I guess we'll start back up to item number 22. Have a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner.
I'll make the motion to approve item 22, the request for approval of ordinance amending Article 4.
Okay, any other, there's a second on that?
I'll second.
There's a second. Any other discussion? Let's go and take a roll call vote, please.
How do you vote, Commissioner Kaler?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Commissioner Weigand?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Mayor Skidmore?
I vote yes, too. That motion carries. Item number 23.
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner.
I move that we approve the ordinance amending Chapter 4, future land use of the comprehensive plan.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second. Other discussion? If not, roll call vote.
How do you vote, Commissioner Weigand?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaler?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Mayor Skidmore?
I vote yes, too. That motion carries. Item 24. Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner.
I will make a motion to approve the ordinance amending Article 19, floodplain management, Article 20, landscaping, and Article 28, site plans of zoning regulations.
Very good. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
There's a second. Other discussion? If not, roll call vote, please.
How do you vote, Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Commissioner Weigand?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaler?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Mayor Skidmore?
And I vote yes, too. That motion carries. And then last one, item 25.
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner.
I move to approve the ordinance as described in item 25 of the agenda.
Is there a second?
No second.
There is a second. Other discussion? If not, we'll roll call vote, please.
How do you vote, Commissioner Kaler?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Commissioner Weigand?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Mayor Skidmore?
And I vote yes, too. That motion carries. And thank you for mixing up that. That was making it more interesting. So, all right, we got to stay on our toes here, don't we? Report by the city manager.
Commissioners, I just remind you that today is our joint lunch with the county. Thank you. I just want to remind you that today is the joint lunch with the county and the school district, and it is at the county annex.
Very good. And we'll go with it. Report by the commissioners. Commissioner Crowley?
I have none.
Nothing? Sarah?
Want to send out kudos to all of the individuals who are the hardworking staff of the city of Ottawa who prepared our town for single-handedly the biggest event that we have in our community every single year. Not only did the utility department, but Public Works and our police department, our fire department, and many others that I'm sure I'm missing, but thank you so much. Also to the car club for the tireless work that they do, and they volunteer all of their time. We have to remember that it's a huge event, but many of them take vacation and their own personal time to make this happen, and it is a huge benefit to our city, so thank you.
I agree. Commissioner Jorgensen.
No report.
Nothing. Mr. Wygan?
No report.
Nothing. And I don't have anything either, but just as I say in the announcements, we've got, as Richard said, our luncheon at the county annex, and a study session on Monday, and then a very important date to circle on your calendar, September 26th, ribbon cutting for the disc golf course at Forest Park at 5 p.m. So we'll see you all there. Nothing else before the city commission meeting today. We are adjourned.